everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is well and doing great for a new week. So, last week was quite the torture session, even getting my video filmed and then uploaded. I had to record the entire video twice, as the first time round my mic failed and there was no sound. And as those of you who have already watched it know, it was a monster of a case. It took several hours to film, so there was that. So it ended up being 2 days of filming and painstaking editing, followed by the video not wanting to upload. And believe you me, it was taking forever. So after 4 days of struggling, it was Google to the rescue and I finally figured out the problem and voila, it went up. So if you're a fellow YouTuber and you're still feeling new like me, just a little tip: if your video isn't uploading, there's a couple of things that you can do. You can go to your app store and see if YouTube Studio or YouTube needs an update, but check before you continue to upload, because the other thing that happened was my iPad likes to update automatically, and it updated YouTube halfway through one of my periods of trying to get this thing uploaded, and it interrupted the upload and it didn't go through, so I had to restart it. But it was like days, and it was stuck at like 17% and 13% every time I sort of interrupted and tried to do it again, and it was just weird. So I thought, this doesn't seem right to me. So what I did is I went on Google and asked, why wasn't it uploading? Serious question. And apart from the make sure you're all up to date with your software on your device, whatever it is you're using, the other thing, and this was really interesting and I didn't know this, was that you can change the resolution of the video that you're uploading. So if you're trying to upload in 4K or 1080p, it's going to take forever. It takes a really long time. I went by their recommendation to go down to 720p, and she went through straight away. Didn't really affect picture quality much at all. So that's probably what I'm going to be doing from now on, is just play with the settings a bit. But yes, it finally went through, but it was such a complex case as well. There was so much to it. It was quite confusing at times, trying to present the last case. So it left me absolutely drained. So as I was sitting around yesterday wondering what to film for this week, I decided to go a little bit easier on myself this week, just a tad. And I came up with an idea for a new segment for the channel, another new one, as you can already see by the thumbnail. So I thought it might be interesting to explore movies, songs, novels, podcasts, radio programs with real-life disturbing backstories to them. So that's what we're doing today after such a heavy week last week. And then to top it all off, horribly, at the end of last week, we did have a death in our family. So yeah, it was a week to be sure. Plus, we were dealing with a heat wave and 100% humidity. Now today, as I'm filming this, it's actually cold. It's dropped from like 36 degrees down to 20 today, which is lovely because I prefer the cold, but the weather is very, very unstable here in Australia. We are also expecting a Cat 5 cyclone to come in up the top there near Queensland, probably towards the end of the week. And if that happens to move down the coast, we're going to end up with a rain depression, which means we could be in for more flooding. So it's been a wild summer and it has been absolutely exhausting. So that's why I've decided to just do something, I don't know if I'd call it fun, but just a little bit easier for this week's video, and just something new for everybody. So if you're a fan of Australian horror films, then you're going to be in for a treat. And you've probably guessed by the thumbnail what we're covering today, and we are exploring the eerie and chilling backstory of one of mine and many other people's favourite Aussie horror movie, WolfCreek. So get coffee, grab your popcorn, or in my case, I have these. These are the absolute bomb. They're Vegemite flavoured shapes, and they're really, really cute. They are, let's find a whole one. They are in the shape of Australia. How adorable is that? So that's my snack of choice. We also have Australia Day on Friday. So I'm ready for Australia Day and I'm ready for this video. So in my case, I don't have popcorn, but I have Vegemite flavoured shapes in the shape of Australia. Perfect for today's video. And I have, because it's a nice cooler day today, my hazelnut latte. So do the same. Get your snacks, lock the doors and turn off the lights. And when you're sitting comfortably, I'll begin. So the WolfCreek movies centre around an eerie piece of the Australian landscape, and we're going to talk about this a little bit first for our overseas viewers or Australian viewers who aren't familiar with it. And it's WolfCreek Meteorite Crater National Park in Western Australia. So WolfCreek Crater is a well-preserved meteorite impact crater in Western Australia. And the location of the crater is in Western Australia, as we just said, and it is accessed by Tanami Road. Just to interrupt our scheduled program here, no, your TV is not playing up. It's Andrea from the future, and I actually got the pronunciation of that road wrong, as I've just discovered. It is Tanami Road for anybody who's interested. I just had to say that because, as usual, I can't pronounce anything. Okay, back to the program. And if Tanami Road is familiar to you, I have actually mentioned Tanami Road and WolfCreek Crater in previous videos. I believe it came up in my Flinders Highway Disappearances video. I think it came up in a couple of others as well. But I will link the Flinders Highway Disappearances video to this one so that you can learn a little bit more about what it's like out near where WolfCreek Crater is. And it's just an interesting video if you've not caught it already. So as we just said, it's accessed via Tanami Road, 150 kilometres or 93 miles south of the town of Halls Creek. The crater is central to the WolfCreek Meteorite Crater National Park. And the crater averages about 875 metres, which is 2,871 feet in diameter, 60 metres from rim to present crater floor. It is estimated that the meteorite that formed it was about 15 metres in diameter and had a mass of around 14,000 tonnes. For many years it was thought to have been created around 300,000 years ago, but in 2019, following investigations by researchers from Portsmouth University, together with Australian and US researchers, it is now estimated to be less than 120,000 years old, placing the event in the Pleistocene era. Small numbers of iron meteorites have been found in the vicinity of the crater, as well as larger so-called shale balls, rounded objects made of iron oxide, some weighing as much as 250 kilos or 550 pounds. It was brought to the attention of scientists after being spotted during an aerial survey in 1947. The crater was investigated on the ground around 2 months later and reported in publication in 1949. The European name from the crater comes from a nearby creek, which was in turn named after Robert Wolfe. Early reports misspell the name as Wolf Creek, but it's actually spelt with an E on the end. Robert Wolfe was a prospector and a storekeeper during the gold rush era that established the town of Halls Creek. And of course, no site in Australia is without Indigenous significance. So the local Jaru Aboriginal people refer to the crater as Kandi Malal. There are multiple dreaming stories about the formation of the crater. One such story describes the crater's round shape being formed by the passage of a rainbow snake out of the earth. And if you've watched some of my Ozfiles videos, you'll be very familiar with the rainbow snake or the rainbow serpent. And that enduring Dreamtime story is one of my favourites to this day. So I'm not sure which video it's on, but just go back through some of my Ozfiles videos and you'll find all about the rainbow serpent, and it's a really beautiful Dreamtime story. So they believe it was formed by the passage of the rainbow serpent out of the earth, while another snake formed the nearby Sturt Creek. Another story, as told by an elder, is that one day the crescent moon and the evening star passed very close to each other. The evening star became so hot that it fell to the ground, causing an enormous explosion and flash, followed by a dust cloud. This frightened the people, and a long time passed before they ventured near the crater to see what had happened. When they finally went there, they realised that this was the site where the evening star had fallen to the earth. The Jaru people named the place Kandi Malal, and it also features prominently in some of the beautiful art from that region. So we get to the cultural references, of course, of what we are exploring today. The crater was featured in the 2005 Australian horror film WolfCreek and the sequel in 2013, WolfCreek 2. It also features Dan Australia streaming service original television series with the same name. It was also the setting for Arthur Upfield's 1962 novel, The Will of the Tribe. The WolfCreek crater has considerable claim to be the second most obvious, that is, relatively underformed by erosion meteorite crater known to Earth, after the famous Barringer crater in Arizona. The crater is mentioned in the 2010s children's science fiction book Alienology that says in its universe that a spacecraft crashed there. So there's some info. So there's a little background about WolfCreek itself, the site of the two WolfCreek movies, as we just said, and the Stan original TV show. So what is the disturbing backstory to WolfCreek? So for those of you who don't know, the WolfCreek killer, Mick Taylor, played by our enormously talented Aussie actor, John Jarratt, is based on not one, but two Australian murderers of some note. So the first one, of course, that we've already probably all guessed already, even if you haven't seen the films and you've just seen the pictures of who we love to call Uncle Mick, is Ivan Milat. And as you can see, Mick's got his rifle, he's got his ute, he's got his plaid shirt. So his look is very much based on Ivan Milat. And if there are some of you out there, and where have you been on Earth, or younger people maybe, who don't know who Ivan Milat is, he was one of our worst serial killers to date here in Australia. I also have a video all about Ivan Milat that you can also watch, so I'll link that in the description box for you too if you'd like to go and watch that and learn about this man, if you can call him that. And he was, as we said, one of our worst serial killers. He was, of course, the backpacker murderer who murdered young people backpacking around Australia, killing them and dumping their remains in the Belangolo State Forest in New South Wales. The other killer that Mick Taylor is based on is Bradley John Murdoch, and he was responsible for the abduction of Joanne Lees and the murder of her boyfriend Peter Falconio in Australia's top end when they were travelling around Australia on holiday from Britain. So when I say the top end, I'm meaning the outback. It's up there near WolfCreek, near Halls Creek, Flinders Highway, that area. So WolfCreek is based loosely on true events, and for years it had been in debate whether that was true or not, but loosely, yes, it is. It's based on the crimes of these two men. So Mick Taylor, the film's serial killer, shares similarities with Murdoch and Milat, such as approaching victims under the guise of car trouble. The sadistic rituals and methods of the real-life killers are reflected in the film, creating a terrifying and disturbing viewing experience. And as you know, I'm the horror girl. I love my horror movies, always have. Started with Halloween when I was about 8. And yes, my mother did let me watch it. Cheers, Mum. And it just grew from there. I've always loved horror movies. And yeah, to this very day. So the WolfCreek movie is actually one of my favourite horror movies. It is very visually disturbing, but the thing that I found the most disturbing, and it came out even more in the second movie, was Mick Taylor. He's awful, he's barbaric, he's extremely cruel, but he's really funny. Like, John Jarratt plays this character extremely well. And he's this sadistic murderer, but you can't help but kind of like him. If that makes any sense. He's a character that he's very charismatic. And he does play this role so well because a lot of serial killers are very charismatic. They're very likable until they reveal their true natures. So big shout out to John Jarratt. I've loved John Jarratt since I was a little girl. He's always been an amazing actor. The first film I ever saw him in was another spooky film, and I have spoken about this before as well, Picnic at Hanging Rock. And he plays a small part in Picnic at Hanging Rock, which was giving me pause to be thinking, hang on, he's the WolfCreek dude when I got older. Wonder what really happened to those girls that went missing in the film. Just kidding. But there is an interesting little side note to John Jarratt doing such a great job as Uncle Mick. I was reading an interview with John in one of our Australian magazines once when I was at the doctor, and John was just, because he lives his life like a normal guy, you know. He's just out for a walk one day, and he was walking across a vacant lot, and this dude came along, and he recognised him, and he's yelling out to him, "You're a murderer, you bastard," and all this stuff. This dude was just totally trashing John Jarratt. And poor John's there. He's like, "Oh, it's just a role I play. I swear I'm not really like that." So it was kind of after that he was really questioning whether he wanted to play Mick Taylor again, because he did cop a little bit of flack for doing such a great job as the killer. But I mean, you have to wonder about the mentality of the person that's like, it's you. You're a killer. You're a murderer. Did he really think that the guy in the movie was the actual dude? It's interesting to think about. But yeah, he did such a great job. He actually did receive a little bit of a thrashing over it. So horror movies based on true events do have a healthy dose of skepticism, as well as the extra layer of terror for the viewers. In 2005, director Greg McLean released the Australian horror film WolfCreek, and it is known as a sadistic and gore-filled horror film that is brutally violent and unwaveringly realistic. Okay, so the movie centres around three main characters besides Uncle Mick. The movie is about three backpackers, Christy and Liz, who are from the UK, and Ben, who's an Aussie, and they are travelling across the Australian outback together. So their little backstory in the movie is the two girls have come out from the UK and they've met Ben and they're travelling around with him. So the journey they're aiming for is to go travelling through the WolfCreek National Forest. But they run into some trouble when their car dies. So you're asking, okay, so how did that happen? So without giving away too much of the movie, if you've not watched it yet, they're actually exploring the crater and they leave their car unattended. So there's just a little tip for you. So they meet a friendly local, of course, named Mick Taylor, who offers to get them help and get them to where they need to go. So they start thinking their luck has turned around, but it's actually the start of their very worst nightmare. So you can probably guess how it goes. He shows up, he's all friendly, he's smiling. And to the two girls, I think he was kind of a bit like a tourist attraction, because here's, an authentic Aussie cowboy, whatever, coming to the rescue. Don't know how poor Ben felt about it. Because obviously I think he wanted to come to the rescue of the girls, but up comes Mick. And as the worst person they could ever possibly have met on their travels. So the torture heavy horror film is one that boasts a true story in its opening credits, as we've said. And we've already said that what was inspiring the creation of Mick Taylor was notorious serial killer Ivan Milat and murderer Bradley Murdoch. Now, Bradley Murdoch does interest me a little bit. While he's only proven to have murdered Peter Falconio, it makes me wonder about all the other disappearances up that way, because there is quite a number of people going missing in that area. So I'm just wondering, was Peter Falconio the only one? Bradley Murdoch has never confessed or copped to anything else, any other disappearances or presumed murders in the area. But it just makes me wonder, just the way that, which I'll get into in a minute, how he kind of was very organised when he actually approached Peter and Joanne. So, like being that organised and having a modus operandi is a trait of a serial killer. So it just makes me wonder if he is responsible for more. There's no proof of it, I'm just speculating. The director of the film has merged Bradley Murdoch and Ivan Milat to create one ultimate serial killer villain that made audiences squirm in their seats. Milat himself is also known, as we said before, as one of the most notorious serial killers in Australian history. And the other killer, Mick Taylor's character, is based on Bradley John Murdoch. As I said before, is only known for one murder, but who knows, there could be more. So, in 2001, two backpackers, Peter Falconio and Joanne Lees, were travelling on the Stuart Highway towards Darwin when they reached Barrow Creek. A mechanic named Bradley Murdoch managed to get them to pull over because he had convinced them that there were sparks coming from their exhaust in their van and that they needed to service the vehicle immediately. After getting Peter to get out of the car, Murdoch had Joanne rev the engine to cover up the sound of Murdoch shooting Peter. From there, Murdoch approached Joanne's window holding the gun. He tied her up and dragged her into his truck while he disposed of Peter's body. Joanne was able to escape while he was preoccupied with Peter, and she hid in some bushes in the outback. Murdoch would search for Joanne for hours but did eventually give up, and when she was certain that he was gone, she managed to stagger back to the highway and get herself some help. And she was discovered by two truck drivers and was able to lead police to Murdoch after they found his DNA on the tyres he used to restrain her with. Bradley Murdoch was found guilty in December of 2005 and is serving life in prison. Peter Falconio's body has still never been found. And I am planning to cover that case in more detail in Real Crime Down Under, so stay tuned for that. Murdoch's approach is similar to Mick Taylor in the movie in that he also approaches the tourists under the guise of car trouble and offers a hand. While Murdoch's incident was isolated to just attacking Peter and Joanne that we know of, he was known for being a drug runner and a heavy amphetamine user. And for those of you not familiar with Ivan Milat, I'll just give you a little bit more on him as well so you can understand Uncle Mick. Ivan Milat, as we said before, was a serial killer who killed at least 7 tourists between 1989 and 1993, although he is suspected of many more, and he has never confessed to any of the crimes, even though there was just so much evidence weighed against him. He has never said, yes, I did it. So these killings became known as the backpacker killings. His murders took place in the Belangolo State Forest in the southern part of Australia. So where the Belangolo Forest is located is just a little ways out of Sydney, travelling south towards Sydney, down that way. But I have covered this before. There was actually a girl from my hometown that went missing in around 1977. And Ivan Milat worked all over the place on road crews. And she was travelling up to Noosa. She never got there. She did get a ride to a town between here and Noosa with a truck driver. The truck driver said that she got out of the truck. She was never seen again. And it just so happened that when the police looked into it further, there was a road crew working in the area, and Ivan Milat was on that road crew. Ivan Milat has also done time in our local jail in Grafton. So that's a very spooky thought. And he could have even been working around here back in the day, because he was active as far back as the late 60s, early 70s. So it's still unknown how many he is exactly responsible for. So the first victims that were found of his were 2 women backpacking from Europe, and they were named Joanne Walters and Carolyn Clark. The bodies of these 2 women were found in Belangolo. Walters was found by hikers in a shallow grave and had been stabbed up to 14 times. Clark was found a day after Walters and had been shot, presumably being used as target practice by Milat. In 1993, a year after Clark and Walters had been found, a human skull was found by the police. This human skull led them to being able to find Deborah Everest and James Gibson, who had gone missing in 1989. Gibson's spine had been severed by a sharp blade, and Everest had been stabbed and then beaten to death. And this plays a part in the movie. In 1991, German backpackers Anja Hapschied and Gabor Neugebauer and Simone Schmidl were the next bodies to be found. Hapschied was also found in a shallow grave with multiple stab wounds, as well as being decapitated. Neugebauer had been shot in the head, and Schmidl was also stabbed to death and was not buried like her friends. Paul Onions was an English man who had narrowly escaped a sadistic killer in 1993 and had a similar story to the killings of the individuals previously mentioned. Onions was the man who was able to identify Ivan Milat as his attacker and link the other murders together to convict him. He was found guilty in 1996 and died in prison in 2019 after spending 20 years in, and as I said before, still not confessing to any of the crimes he committed. Mick Taylor, or Uncle Mick, as fans of the movie like to call him, seems to be, he's based on both Milat and Murdoch, but Milat seems to be the main influence for the character of Mick Taylor in WolfCreek, as many of the rituals in both individuals are similar. In WolfCreek, we see Taylor shooting Christie at point-blank range, which can be related to Joanne Walter's killing. Using the backdrop of WolfCreek National Park is similar to Milat's murders taking place in the Belangolo State Forest. There is also some speculation of... how do I say this? It's ooey. It's icky. I don't think I've got any other way to say it, so I'm just going to say what the research is telling me here. There is also some speculation of sexual satisfaction on Milat's end during or after these murders, which we also see with Taylor in the film while he is torturing Christie. In another incredibly sadistic way, they are similar in enjoying decapitating their victims after severing their spinal cord to paralyse them. In the film, Taylor refers to the victim of this as a head on a stick. And that was something Ivan Milat did to his victims. He did the whole head on a stick thing. So that is where that came from, and I think I've mentioned it before when I've referenced Ivan Milat and the movie. So we're just going to look at a few more parallels between the killers who inspired WolfCreek. So while McLean upped the ante a bit with the sadistic killings as we see in the movie, such as Ben being nailed to wooden boards, crucifixion style, the guts of the story remain to be equally disturbing. He even gets down to the general style and aesthetic of Milat in the rough and rugged-looking man of the outback. He carries the same base of a story in the sequel, WolfCreek 2, when Taylor encounters German backpackers as well as a character named Paul, and his last name in the movie is Hammersmith, who escapes his clutches just like Onions did with Milat. Mick Taylor is insane and creepy enough to evoke fear in anyone watching WolfCreek, but the parallels between the sadistic fictional serial killer and the real-life serial killings of Bradley Murdoch and Ivan Milat might be just enough to make us never want to go backpacking anywhere in Australia. And to be honest, I've never wanted to backpack, and these killings were happening when I was like a teen, merging into my young 20s, and to see that going on, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to stay home. Things can happen to you at home as well, but this whole backpacking around, you're walking, you're hitching, you don't have your own car or your car breaks down, that to me is actually very frightening. And if you don't run into some deranged lunatic, there's animals, the heat, the atmospheric conditions can also leave you in a very vulnerable position and can lead to bad things happening. So I'm just going to say it. I'm a complete chicken and I would never do it, especially after all of this. So if you're wanting to watch WolfCreek and you're in the States, it is available to stream on Prime Video in the US. And the WolfCreek series is also available stateside via the horror streaming platform Shudder. Not only was WolfCreek the subject of 2 films and 2 popular streaming series, it was also a novel written by Riley Presnell. So Riley Presnell is a features writer for Collider. Her specialties are horror and reality TV, and like me, she's had an obsession with horror, specifically slashers and meta horror, since she can remember. And her comfort movie is the 1996 Scream. So if you can have a comfort movie that's a horror movie, well, I absolutely love the Scream franchise, especially the newer ones. my serial killer of favourite note is Michael Myers, and he is the serial killer in Halloween. If you've never watched it, if you like horror movies and you've never watched Halloween 1977, then you've missed out. You need to go watch it. But I was 8 the first time I saw it. I don't really know why Mum let me watch it, but I think she just realised that I was weird anyway. I could probably handle it, I don't know. It's funny though, like, talking about horror movies and stuff, I remember watching Halloween, and I absolutely loved Jamie Lee Curtis too. I thought her character was just amazing, how she played Laurie Strode back then when it was like her first film and she was so young and everything. And she became like a pop culture icon after that. So I remember watching that when I was a child, but the one that really scared the wiggins out of me was When a Stranger Calls, like the first version of that, the original When a Stranger Calls, and you know, like Jill St. John's there, and she's young, she's the babysitter as well, and she's so innocent, and she's babysitting for Dr. Mandrakis and his wife and their children, and she's sitting there and the phone keeps ringing, and this dude just, if you've never seen it, and the remake of it was amazing as well. Both really beautifully crafted films. So she's sitting there and he's like, have you checked the children? And she's thinking it's just Dr. Mandrakis ringing just to see, have you checked the children? And it keeps up and it keeps up, and she starts to get really frightened. And she's on the line with the police and they're trying to trace the call, and then they find out where the call is coming from. But I'm not going to say it in case you've never watched the film. You need to watch both of them. The original made in about 1981, I think it was. And the follow-up, I think, was around 96, something like that. Could have been later, I'm not sure. But they are both awesome films. But that was the one that really scared the crap out of me, like even more than Halloween. So that's where it all got started with me. So, and obviously this lady has an affection for Scream. So Riley Presnell's other favourite movies include Bride of Chucky, The Evil Dead, and A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. She believes that everybody can be a horror fan, they just have to find the right subgenre for them. Each horror film has a deeper meaning for you if you can look beyond the bloody surface. And that's about where we leave our disturbing horror movie with a disturbing backstory. So if you're interested in finding out more about WolfCreek and the series, so there's 2 seasons of WolfCreek, the series, and I'm not sure, I think that's sort of what happens after the 2 movies. But yeah, they are available to buy on DVD, and you're pretty much going to be able to find them on a streaming service somewhere. But for my money, start with the first WolfCreek. See if you've got the stomach for the second one, because I'm just going to warn you guys now, the second one, torture-wise, is, oh my God, so much worse than the first one. But it's horrible to say, but John Jarrett's at his best in the second one. There's some quite, in amidst all this horror, there's some quite funny moments with John playing Mick Taylor. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I just really needed to do something slightly more lighthearted after such a heavy week last week. It was a lot. Just that we've had such oppressive heat here in Australia, and it's the kind of heat that actually makes you feel sick. And then we had the death of a family member. Nothing going right with the technology, and it's just left me a little tired this week, but I still wanted to get something out, and I thought this might be just a bit of something fun for us to have a look at. So that is WolfCreek and its disturbing backstories, and if you have watched it and you didn't know about the backstories, but Uncle Mick was reminding you of somebody, now you know who it is. So thank you all so much again for watching. Thank you to my new subscribers who subscribed this week. Welcome, and I'm so happy you're here. Please stick with me. I'd love to have you back. And just on that note, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I have so many new things coming up for the channel, lots of fun stuff this year that I hope you guys will enjoy. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I'd love to have you back here as well. And it helps me out a ton with YouTube. As I've said before, still trying to get to the goal of my first 1,000 subs. And if you'd love to help me get there and do that, please subscribe. Also, drop a comment. And what do you think of the movies? Have you watched them? Would you like to tell me your opinion of the movies? What did you think of them? What did you think of John Jarratt's performance as the killer? How did you feel about the individuals that became his victims? I was actually, I liked the movie. I liked the location. It's like, for a horror movie, it's very well filmed. The videography is stunning. But I really liked the characters. I liked Ben and I liked Christy and Liz. I liked them a lot. And I was actually sad when they did meet some gruesome fates with Uncle Mick. I won't say any more in case you haven't seen it, but these characters in this movie will touch your heart. So just be prepared for that if you do watch it. So yeah, just let me know. Have you watched it? Would you like to watch it? Is it a no, hell no, no way movie for you? Yeah, if you want to have a chat about the movie, just drop a few comments in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you guys think of it. And if you have any pop culture references with disturbing backstories that you've heard of on your own that you would love me to present here on our new little segment of Backstories, please let me know. Or if you have any other cases or weird phenomena, weird stories, just anything you would like to share and you'd like to have me do it for you, just ask. Just drop me a comment in the comment section below and I'd be happy to do that. So, who's up for a screening of WolfCreek tonight? Now I want to watch it again. I know, I'm weird. I've always been weird. That's just me. So we do have another video coming later this week. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if this hot weather stays away and it stays cool and nice and nothing else awful happens during the week, I'll have another video for you. And we are going to be looking at a very scary case that is unsolved. So that will be for Unsolved Australia. And yeah, and just all the other good things as well as we progress on the channel. So that's coming up. I'm just counting on cooler weather soon, so hopefully we can start back up with Clarence Valley Paranormal and our friends in Lismore. Really want to get that started again soon. We're just waiting for the weather to cool down a little bit and for holidays to be finished. The kidlets go back to school next week for some of our members, so yeah, we might be able to start thinking about our locations we want to go to for Clarence Valley Paranormal as well. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks for sticking with me. I've had so many hiccups and you guys have been just the most amazing support, and I just appreciate and love all of you so much. Stay safe, everybody. I wouldn't go to WolfCreek. Just nah. And I will see you all again very soon in my next video. Cheers. Bye.